Hey guys, welcome to an interesting video on Wild Rift. So today we're back with something a little bit more interesting, which is we're going to be doing a rune analysis for the new runes added in patch 3.2. So I will be doing another video talking about all the runes in the game as a whole with the new updated 3.2 runes for another episode of Wild Rift Fundamentals. But for today we're only going to be talking about the 8 new runes that have been added in patch 3.2, which is a lot. So we got 2 keystones, 2 domination runes, 2 resolve runes, and 2 inspiration runes. Honestly, I'm pretty surprised that no other Wild Rift content creator has really done something like this yet. I would think that a lot of people would, but I guess not. So anyways, we're gonna get straight onto it. So we're gonna start off with the keystone rune. So first up, we're gonna talk about Kraken Slayer. So Kraken Slayer deals bonus damage to a champion every 3rd attack. That counts on autos only, doesn't count on abilities, and you can proc it onto different champions. For example, I can attack a Braum twice, and then I attack the Lucian once, and it will proc on the Lucian. So it's not like a Vayne passive where you need to hit the same target 3 times. Anyways, by the way guys, I'm recording this video in patch 3.2 itself, so this is before 3.2a, 3.2b, etc. So this is based on the release in patch 3.2, because personally I do predict that some of these runes might get buffed or nerfed. Like Demolish may get a nerf, and I really think that Kraken Slayer will be getting a buff in the next 1 or 2 patches, because Kraken Slayer is pretty weak. So basically the true damage that you get from the rune, if you guys can take a look, at level 1 it's 28, at level 15 it's 70, and 70 damage in the late game is nearly negligible. Not negligible, but you would get so much more from like all of the other keystone runes. Like from Conquer you would get way more than 70 damage worth if you like fully stack your Conquer, or even if you got 3 hits on Conquer, you likely would get more than 70 true damage worth. Of course it does scale with AD and magic damage, but basically what I'm trying to get at here is that overall Conqueror is a pretty bad rune, because really there's only 2 champions in the game that can viably take Conqueror without having their damage output severely affected, which is Lucian and Akshan. So Lucian, because of the fact he has a double auto attack on his Light Singer passive, he can proc Conqueror a lot and very often, so his damage output is actually comparable to Conqueror. And I will be doing a video on Kraken Slayer Lucian really soon, but Lucian can indeed take Kraken Slayer, but Conqueror is still viable as well. Same goes for Akshan. Conqueror is still viable as well, and for Akshan, because his E can actually proc the Kraken Slayer, so when you do your swing, you can proc the Kraken Slayer really quickly, and it also synergizes with his 3-hit passive, so it works out really well on Akshan as well. But aside from those 2, as of patch 3.2 itself, no one else viably can take Conqueror. No other 3-hit champions like even Vi or Vayne, like those with 3-hit passive, they shouldn't be taking Conqueror. Not Conqueror, they shouldn't be taking Kraken Slayer, because really the true damage is really just too little. I think that they will be buffing this to make it more. So next up, Lethal Tempo, which is an amazing overall keystone rune. So what does it do? You gain a stack of attack speed when you attack champions, also on auto attacks only, stacks up to 6 times, and you gain 6% to 12% of attack speed if you're melee, and 3 to 9% if you're range. Of course this scales with levels, so at level 1 it's 6% for melee, and 12% when you hit level 15 on a melee. Same goes for range in terms of the levels. And if you hit 6 stacks, you gain a bonus 30% attack speed. Now this also applies when you're at level 1. It's just a flat 30% attack speed boost. So this is really good for basically majority of ADCs. On certain ADCs like Jinx and like on Vayne, this is definitely far and away their best keystone. But on a lot of other ADCs, for example Kai'Sa, Xayah, Caitlyn, they all still can take Conqueror, or they can take Lethal Tempo, but you do have like different builds if you take Lethal Tempo or Conqueror for some champions. Like for example Caitlyn, we'll be doing an updated Caitlyn complete guide soon, but I wanted to get out my thoughts on the keystones first. Some melee champions like Tryndamere, Jax, and Yasuo definitely benefit from Lethal Tempo as well, and there are a lot of other champions like for example Irelia, who can also go for opt into Lethal Tempo but can still take Conqueror. But I feel that there are a lot of champions who do better with Conqueror but are getting baited into taking Lethal Tempo just because it's a new rune. Champions like Irelia, for example, I think do way better with Conqueror, but a lot of people are taking Lethal Tempo just because it is a new rune. And Kraken Slayer, a lot of people are taking that as well because it's a new rune, but really Kraken Slayer kind of sucks at the moment. And Lethal Tempo, it is amazing, but it's not amazing on everybody, although I will say that it is viable on a lot of champions. It's not, definitely, I wouldn't say it's troll to take Lethal Tempo on a lot of champions like Irelia, for example, but I would say that they have a better rune, which is Conqueror, because don't forget, just because Lethal Tempo came out, that doesn't make Conqueror weaker. Conqueror is still incredibly strong, but hey, I love Lethal Tempo as a rune. I think it's really strong, especially on the correct champions. So now next we're going to talk about Domination. Now, in my opinion, the Domination runes are the most underwhelming of all of the new runes that they released. And the best are the Inspiration runes and the Lethal Tempo as well. So first up we have Scorch. So what does Scorch do? Deals damage to enemy champion when deals extra magic damage to an enemy champion when you cast an ability onto them. And this procs after a second of casting that ability, and it does 21 to 35 bonus magic damage based on level. So as you guys can see, the scaling is absolutely horrendous. It basically gains 1 extra damage each level, so basically it's gonna only be good in the early levels in the laning phase to do a little bit of extra damage. However, I feel there's a huge problem with this. The first problem is that in Wild Rift, the laning phase is gonna be about only 5 minutes. Like basically after the first dragon, the laning phase is more or less over, where your team goes for first dragon, then they rotate over to Herald or vice versa, and after that maybe there's a short laning phase, but all of the rotations, everything's not coming out. So really you only benefit from this in the laning phase. And there's two other problems. The first other problem with this is that there's Sweet Tooth, so the burn damage is a lot less compared to like Elite PC. And secondly, the small map, so you can recall very easily, get back all your health, and get back to lane without losing too much. So overall, I think Scorch, while in theory it seemed to be pretty good at laning phase, early game kind of rune, but really, I don't really think anybody really wants to take Scorch. Like mid lane mages, initially you would think they want to take Scorch, but really, if I was playing a mid lane mage, I would get so much more value from Gathering Storm. Like, you get so much more AP from that, and the Scorch damage just really is not significant enough to warrant taking it. And even on early aggressive champions like maybe Lucian or Draven, who would have considered taking Scorch, like they have better options like Brutal or Hunter Vampirism. And yeah, so lastly, for Domination, we have Giant Slayer. So Giant Slayer is basically you deal bonus damage based on enemy champion's bonus health. Up to 10% bonus damage when an enemy champion has 1k health. So extra 10% damage is a lot, but that's on champions who have 1k health. And basically to reach that 1k health, enemy champions need to build a War Mox, which is not very common. And judging by the scaling, it's you gain extra 1% bonus damage for every 100 health they have. So this will indeed be useful against some champions, particularly top lane like fighters or tanks, who built like, you know, Black Cleaver gives you like 350 health, then maybe you have like Dead Man's Plate, another bunch of health, that kind of build. Like if you're against like Darius, Garen, Mundo, tanky champions, it would be useful. But two issues with this. Firstly, tanks are not very popular in the meta at the moment. Divine Thunder is very rampant in the meta, which already shreds tanks, so tanks aren't very popular. And next up is same problem as the Scorch. It's in the Domination tree, so it competes with a lot of other really great runes. Weakness is an amazing rune for people that have CC. Triumph is amazing rune for the Execute and the Heal. Hunter Vampirism is an amazing rune for basically all ADCs and a lot of other champions as well. Gathering Storm is great for like mid lane mages who want to scale. And Brutal is your early game rune of choice. So really, Cut Down, I don't see a whole lot of value in taking Cut Down unless there are like at least 3 tanky characters on the enemy team. Just because there's one enemy Mundo, I'm not going to be taking Cut Down over one of the other Domination runes. But if there's like an enemy Mundo, enemy Nunu, and an enemy Gallo, yeah, I think Giant Slayer is going to get amazing value. But I think you would take this one in every like 50 matches or so. It's not completely useless, but it's very, very niche. So next we have the Resolve runes. So first up we have Ultimate Shield. Ultimate Shield, after you cast your ultimate, for the next 3 seconds you gain a shield which lasts 3 whole seconds. So that's a pretty relatively long duration. Shield amount 75. plus your level times 15, so a decent amount of shield. Honestly, I think this one is really niche as well. I wouldn't say it's a bad rune, but honestly, you only take this on champions who go in with their ultimate. Think champions like Kennen and Morgana, basically the two examples that they gave, but there aren't too many champions like that who outright need the shield when they go in for ultimate. Even like champions like Kai'Sa or Pantheon that kind of go in with their ultimates as well don't necessarily need to take ultimate shield. And even on Kennen and Morgana, you do have other options, although I really do think this is good on Kennen and Morgana, but really I think it's a good rune, but it's very specialized. Next we have Nullifying Orb. So Nullifying Orb is an actual really good rune. So basically, it's a kind of a lifeline passive. When you go below 35% of your health, you gain a shield for 4 seconds, which is a pretty long duration. You get an 80 shield, plus it scales off your 50% bonus AD and 30% AP with a cooldown of 60 seconds. Now that's a relatively long cooldown, but you can play around it very well in lane. Now this is basically a better version of the adaptive carapace, which you can see over here, which is also kind of a lane rune. In lane, this can be very useful because if you trade when this is up, you get a shield even though it's only 80, but it's unexpected from your opponent at least for the first time, and that could let you get a kill or win the trade or something like that. And even in the late game, although it doesn't have the best scaling, it still has pretty alright as a shield factor to surprise like other people from other lanes who don't necessarily know you have Nullifying Orb. And it's just a bonus shield, like who doesn't want a bonus shield? Now the only issue is that it does compete with Bone Plating and Hunter Titan, which are two very popular rune choices for Resolve, but I actually do see Nullifying Orb having a very good grip on the top 3 runes of the Resolve category. So I do think that Nullifying Orb is a very good rune, and I might even, you know, take it on some ADCs from time to time, and maybe we'll do videos on it in the future. Lastly, we have the Inspiration Runes. So Inspiration Runes, we have 2 new runes. First up, we have Nimbus Cloak. After casting a summoner spell, gain 5 to 25% bonus movement speed for the next 2 seconds, and how much movement speed you gain depends on how long the CD is. Of course, on Flash, you gain the most movement speed, and you know, on those lower cooldown spells, like, you know, if you're taking an ARAM, something like Snowball or maybe Ignite doesn't have too long of a cooldown, you'll get a little bit less movement speed. Either way, Nimbus Cloak I think is a very good rune for one main reason, which is, firstly, I think Sweet Tooth as a rune is pretty bad now. So Sweet Tooth used to be the rune that if you had no better rune to take, you take Sweet Tooth. Now Pathfinder and Mastermind are for junglers, Hunter Genius is if you need cooldown, Pack Hunter is for supports, and Mana Flow Ban is for people who need mana. So last time you used to default to Sweet Tooth if you need none of these, and now if you need none of these, your new default rune is going to be Nimbus Cloak. So basically Nimbus Cloak is just good because not necessarily everybody needs a particular rune from the inspiration tree. If you do, you go for it. Like for mana hungry champions, just go for Mana Flow Ban. But if you're a champion that doesn't need any of the above runes, and of course, as I said, Sweet Tooth is bad, then you would go for Nimbus Cloak. So Nimbus Cloak is just very good for that reason, and of course, extra movement speed when you cast spells could come in clutch, whether be it chasing down a kill or running away from a killer. It's going to be very, very just very useful in general. So Nimbus Cloak I think is a great rune, and Demolish as well I think is an amazing rune. Now honestly anybody can take Demolish, but I feel like it's best on like top laners or even junglers. Junglers because they can rotate around the map and proc it on different towers, and top laners because they build health which it scales out of. So what does it do? When you're within 5.5 range of an enemy turret, you gain a charge every 0.5 seconds up to 6 stacks, and when you fully stack, your next basic attack against a turret deals an extra 200 plus 25% bonus health physical damage with a 35-second cooldown. So basically, if you're playing like a top laner and you do manage to push your opponent in and proc Demolish, you can do this on repeat and just play super aggressive. So this makes like lane bully champions really strong as well, makes tank champions really strong so they have tower taking potential, and just makes top laners and junglers have a way to take down towers quickly. Now personally, I think the scaling on this is pretty insane, because you see sometimes like when you get too late in the game, you see sometimes people get one entire plate or more worth of damage with the Demolish. So I think that they might nerf Demolish, possibly like the scaling of Demolish, but I think Demolish is an amazing rune for especially top laners, tanks, and like junglers. I think it's amazing for tower taking, amazing for getting plates, which is gives you gold, and it's just an amazing rune overall. So that's pretty much it for discussing all of the new runes in patch 3.2. Look forward to the fundamentals video on all of the runes guide. So thank you guys for watching the video, and goodbye.